Y'all, happy Tuesday. Today's lesson is going to be connected to a question from your benchmark. So if you see here, these are all the questions from the benchmark. You did really well on question 11. We kind of struggled on question 2. So this is from all of 8th grade, all classes, all teachers. So we're going to look at question 1. Question 1 is a question that you have to draw a conclusion. So the question says, what leads Mrs. Hale to wish she had visited the house more often? And the answer is she realizes that Mrs. Wright could have used her company. So if you look here in the play, you see that there's a conversation between Mrs. Hale and Mrs. Peters, and they are talking about Mrs. Wright. So if you scroll through, the first place that talks about visiting happens here. It says, I could have come. I stayed away because it weren't cheerful. If you scroll down a little more, it says, I wish I had come to see Minnie Foster sometimes. So this is the piece of text that is connected to the question. So then we come back and we look at the question, and we have 4 choices. She has always been close to the Wrights. Well, that doesn't connect. She wants to keep Mrs. Peters from feeling lonely. No, she's talking to Mrs. Peters. She realizes that Mrs. Wright could have used her company. She recognizes that she could have saved Mrs. Wright from death. So there's nothing there about death, so it has to be C. She realized that Mrs. Wright could have used her company. Now, it doesn't say that straight up. It's not explicit. You have to draw a conclusion. The way you can draw a conclusion is you look at 13 and it says, it wasn't a cheerful place. I never liked this place. It's down in a hollow. It's a lonesome place. And then she says, I should have come and visit Minnie Foster. Well, why? Because it's a lonesome place, and obviously Minnie Foster was probably lonely in this lonesome place. So you have to draw a conclusion. So let's look at our slide. This is the paper that should be sitting in front of you right now. So let's take a look. Drawing conclusions. A conclusion is a logical opinion or idea. Remember, you should be highlighting as I go through. A conclusion is a logical opinion or idea you reach. You do this by pulling together facts or details from the text, also from your background knowledge. So to draw conclusions about a written work, you need to look for important details or clues in the text. Then you use your own prior knowledge and experience, and you fill in the gaps as you piece it all together. So that's how you draw a conclusion. Now, this is the same piece of text that I gave you yesterday. Yesterday, we looked at it as far as stage directions and dialogue. Today, you're going to look at it as far as what conclusions can be drawn from each character. So let's look here. Again, we've already read this, so I'm not going to read it to you again. So what conclusions can I draw about Miss Van Dam from this piece of text? Well, we go through, we see that Peter has sympathy for his mother because father says he's going to sell her fur coat. Now we remember from earlier that that fur coat was a gift from her father, so she has a lot of sentimental connection with the coat. It's also a connection to normalcy. Remember, we talked about their desire to keep normalcy as a part of survival as they hide in the annex. Then there's a side conflict where Mr. starts judging Mrs. Van Dam. Peter comes to her defense. So here we see Mrs. Van Dam says, no, 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 exclamation point. Don't you dare take that, exclamation point. You hear? It's mine, exclamation point. So one conclusion I can draw is she is upset. Why? Because she's using exclamation points, she's screaming, she's using very short sentences. She says, my father gave me that. So she's saying this is sentimental. She's upset. She does not want to sell the coat. The coat is important to her. So these are all conclusions I can draw from what I've read in this piece of text. Now, if I was writing a racist paragraph, I would explain this using evidence. She is upset. She does not want to sell the coat. The coat is important to her. How do I know this? Well, she says, no, 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 don't you dare take that. It's mine. My father gave me that. You could also say, this text evidence shows that she wants to keep the coat because it was something that was sentimental to her because it was a gift from her father. Now, what I need you to do is for number 2 and number 3, go back to the text excerpt and draw conclusions about Mr. Van Daan and Peter. Now remember, when you draw conclusions, you're using both the dialogue and the stage directions. They come together like a rope that piece together the plot. So thank you so much. Have a great Thanksgiving break. Goodbye.